when I was unexpectedly transmigrated into the body of a wimpy rich kid from a novel. The scheming male assistant claimed to have sprained his ankle. I sneered. Then maybe we should just get rid of that foot. My wife rebuked me for having no empathy. I threw the divorce papers and a pen in her face. Then there's no need to continue this marriage. Sign it. I was someone who had transmigrated into a book. In the original story, although the male lead and female lead were in an arranged marriage between powerful families, he deeply loved the female lead, Victoria Ashworth. They had lived 5 blissful years together until the appearance of that little assistant, Ethan Miller. The female lead, Victoria, found her attention captured by him, abandoning the male lead for him time and time again. The original male lead was a complete wuss. Despite being the heir to a powerful family, he was helpless when Ethan provoked him at his own home, again and again. In the end, he died after coughing up blood from sheer rage. When I transmigrated, Ethan hadn't appeared yet. Logically, this should have been the peak of our loving marriage, and with my incredible prowess in bed, I had made Victoria fall hopelessly in love with me, unable to get enough. Just when I thought the homewrecker plotline was avoided, Ethan Miller suddenly made his debut ahead of schedule, and just like in the book, he immediately captured Victoria's attention. I'd only heard her mention him recently, saying a new assistant had joined the company who couldn't do anything right and was clumsy and ridiculous. I was in the middle of dinner when my hand suddenly froze. With a sharp crack, the steak knife in my hand snapped in two. Victoria didn't even notice. She was still smiling, recounting Ethan's amusing antics from that day. When she got to a funny part, she even laughed out loud. It was then that I understood the novel's plot was immutable. No matter what I did, she would be drawn to Ethan. The original Sincere had done everything perfectly, taking care of her in every conceivable way. The book had portrayed him as a perfect man. But what was the result? I had initially thought I could win her heart by trying my best, but when Ethan came to our home to provoke me for the first time, I realized just how quickly their relationship had progressed. Of course, I taught him a lesson, thinking he might back off. I then went back to living my luxurious life as the young master of a wealthy family with my gorgeous wife. But later, my perspective changed. If I couldn't keep her, then I wouldn't. However, just letting them get their happy ending wasn't my style. Ethan Miller, oh, Ethan Miller. I will see to it that your bones are ground to dust and you die a miserable death in a foreign land. I still remember the first time I met Ethan. It was one evening when I got home from work. I looked at the dinner Mrs. Davis had prepared and was very pleased. Victoria should be home soon, right? I mumbled to myself, picking up a piece of rib and popping it in my mouth. Not bad. Just then the front doorknob turned. Victoria was back. Why are you so late today? Mrs. Davis made all your favorites. Hurry up. Before I could finish, a man walked in from behind Victoria. At the time, I didn't know he was Ethan Miller. I only knew such a person existed but had never seen his face. You must be Mr. Prescott. My name is Ethan Miller. I work for Ms. Ashworth. Before Victoria could speak, Ethan introduced himself. My car broke down today, and Ms. Ashworth was going to give me a ride home. I told her it was no fun being home alone, so I invited myself over to liven things up with you two. I'm not intruding, am I? He made himself right at home, slipping on a pair of guest slippers with an innocent, harmless smile that could easily put one at ease. If I hadn't known what kind of trash he really was, I might have been charmed by that smile. Of course you're intruding. Besides, we didn't prepare any food for you, I said, my face stern. I wasn't joking. Hearing this, Ethan, who had just changed his shoes, froze mid-step, looking at Victoria awkwardly. Victoria had already walked over to me. She tapped me playfully. Oh, you always love to joke. I'm not hungry tonight, so you two can have more. With that, she warmly invited Ethan to come in and sit down. After sitting, Ethan put on an apologetic smile. Sincere, your home has such a wonderful atmosphere. It's so boring for me to go home to an empty apartment every day. I'm not greedy. I'd be perfectly happy if I could have an opportunity like this just twice a week. You know, for kids out here on their own, it's really... He trailed off with a sigh, a look of profound sadness on his face. Victoria looked at him with pity. In that case, you can come over on weekends from now on. We can all have a good time together. She had grown up coddled and had no idea that this was just how the real world works. Isn't it normal for adults to go out and fend for themselves? Hearing this, Ethan's eyes suddenly lit up. President Ashworth, are you serious? He shot up from his seat excitedly, then paused, probably because I was there. Otherwise, it looked like he was about to give Victoria a huge hug. He turned his head to look at me. Sincere, is that really okay? I nodded, thinking, let's see if you even live long enough for that. Throughout the meal, Ethan was ecstatic, chattering endlessly with Victoria. She, in turn, seemed to have an infinite number of things to say to him. It was as if they had forgotten I even existed. You two eat first. I'm going to check if the water has boiled. I picked up my napkin, wiped my mouth, and walked into the kitchen. Because I knew the plot, I knew that after I entered the kitchen, Ethan would follow me in under the pretext of helping. He would pour a cup of hot water, and fearing he might actually burn himself, add some cool water before splashing it on himself. What was supposed to follow was the infamous scene where even God himself would get slapped. Victoria would slap the original protagonist, then take Ethan to the hospital. All because of a little redness from the hot water. She would end up taking care of him there for 2 days. And sure enough, just as the plot dictated, I had barely stepped into the kitchen when Ethan followed. Sincere, let me help you, he called out in a loud voice. Outside, Victoria heard him and smiled faintly. Ethan is so thoughtful. I quietly poured myself a cup of tea. I'm just getting some water. You, on the other hand, if you don't want to get beaten to a pulp, get the hell out, now. My voice was low, but loud enough for him to hear clearly. He looked as if he'd misheard me, asking with a puzzled expression, What did you say? I didn't even bother to look up at him, viewing him as nothing more than an ant. If you don't want to die, scram. Seeing me like this, he dropped the act. He took a glass, filled it 2/3 of the way with hot water, and turned on the tap to add cold water. Looks like I really underestimated you. Victoria told me you were a gentle soul. I was planning to put you in your place today, but this works too. He didn't get to finish his sentence. I sent him sprawling with a single kick. I then picked up the kettle of freshly boiled water and poured it directly over his head. Our Ethan writhed on the floor, letting out a scream like a pig being slaughtered. Sensing something was wrong, Victoria rushed in. She saw the scene and froze for a second, then shrieked at me, Sincere Prescott, what are you doing? Stop! She didn't dare come closer, because I was still holding the kettle, pouring the water over his body in time with his writhing. First his face, then his torso, then his lower body. Before I transmigrated, I'd watched people slaughter pigs. I knew exactly how to pour the water to make scalding most effective, to keep him in excruciating pain without letting him die. 10 liters of boiling water. The volume of 2 of those giant jugs of Wesson oil. I had specifically bought a large electric kettle just for this day. As the last drop of water trickled out, I shook the kettle and turned to Victoria with a grave expression. What are you staring at? Get him to the hospital, or the consequences will be dire. You get him to the car first, I'll grab some things and be right there. Victoria, as if her brain had short-circuited, nodded numbly. Okay, I'll take him to the hospital now. She tried to help Ethan up, but the moment her hand touched his skin, he yelped as if being stabbed by needles. Watching them stumble to the car, I smiled faintly. The show was just beginning. Don't worry, Ethan, I won't let you die that easily. Wasn't I supposed to get slapped? Well, I didn't. In the book, Ethan got a small red patch from a splash of hot water, and Victoria stayed with him at the hospital for 2 days. Now his skin is practically boiled off. That should keep him there for at least a month. Tonight, I'll get a good night's sleep. Tomorrow, I'll visit the law firm to start dividing our assets. I slept soundly until morning. I stretched languidly, then checked my phone. Dozens of missed calls and countless messages. I couldn't be bothered to look at them. I put the phone away, got up, and had breakfast. Just as I was about to leave, I was stopped at the door by the police. We're officers from the local precinct. We received a report that you intentionally assaulted someone. You must be mistaken, officers. It was an accident. My hand slipped. He's my friend. Why would I? I then recounted the events of last night to the police, telling them the truth. You're telling me your hand slipped and you spilled 10 liters of boiling water? That's one slippery hand you've got there. I explained with a perfectly straight face. Exactly, officer. It was so heavy I couldn't control it. And that's why... Cut the crap. We saw the victim before we came here. 100% of his skin is covered in burns. You couldn't water flowers that thoroughly. You're telling me you couldn't control the kettle? The injuries are severe, but not fatal. Your technique is quite impressive, isn't it? You flatter me. I was just careless, and that's what happened. I really didn't mean to. All right, don't take it as a compliment and spare me the false modesty. You're coming with us. With that, they escorted me into a police car and took me to the station. On the way, I sent a message to Victoria. The gist of it was, if I'm charged, the story of how Victoria Ashworth brought her boy toy home late at night only for him to be scalded by her husband will not sound good. You know what that kind of scandal will do to the company's stock price, and a criminal record for me will affect our future children. Sure enough, not 10 minutes after I arrived at the station, Victoria showed up with a statement from Ethan dropping the charges. With that, combined with my cooperative attitude and willingness to pay compensation, I was out in time for lunch. Watching me shovel food into my mouth as if nothing had happened, Victoria, who had been holding it in all morning, finally snapped. Why did you do that to Ethan? He provoked me first. He was going to splash water himself to frame me, drive a wedge between us and kick me out so he could take my place. Victoria looked at me with utter disbelief. Do you really think I'd believe something so absurd? If you don't believe me, there's no point in asking. I'm just telling you the facts. I have no interest in a woman who is so biased. I put down my cutlery and pulled the prepared divorce papers from my bag. Victoria, let's get a divorce. I handed the papers to her, but she didn't take them. She just stared at me with incredulous eyes. Sincere, what is the meaning of this? The meaning is that after we divorce, you and your little assistant can be together openly. I'll grant you your wish. The real reason I'd used boiling water to disfigure him was that even with a divorce, I had no intention of letting them be happy. After this, Victoria might feel guilty. She might even take care of him. But faced with a body and face covered in scars, no one could possibly feel desire. I don't have a habit of playing matchmaker for others' happiness. Sincere, Prescott, what are you talking about? He's just a kid. I saw him struggling all alone out here, and he's so clumsy, so I just helped him out a little more. There's nothing between us. Her voice suddenly rose, as if raising her volume would make her right. I let out a cold laugh. Do you believe that yourself? You say he's a kid, but he's only 2 years younger than us. When I was his age, I was already traveling all over the country, all over the world for business. Weren't you perfectly content at home then? You say he's clumsy and can't do anything without your help. But what do you do with other incompetent employees? You fire them without a second thought. You are a capable and intelligent businesswoman. Are you telling me you can't see what his intentions are toward you? My words deflated her instantly. The defiant fire in her eyes, which had been fixed on mine, flickered out as she guiltily looked away. She suddenly seemed very busy, fidgeting restlessly. In all our years of marriage, I had never seen her like this. After a moment, she finally spoke softly. Honey, it's not what you think. I might have helped him a bit more than usual, but there's really nothing between us. I had finished my meal. I stood up. Well, you should think about it carefully. With that, I left the restaurant. Victoria watched my retreating back, tears streaming down her face. She felt that I was different from before. When they first met, she thought Sincere Prescott was perfect in every way, just a little too serious and lacking a sense of humor. But his devotion to her was unquestionable. Then, a few years ago, it was as if he had undergone a complete personality change, becoming witty and a smooth talker. He was incredibly attentive, and in bed he satisfied her completely. She had started to fall deeper and deeper in love. Yet the moment Ethan appeared, he had still captured her attention. Even though he had nothing to offer, she just couldn't bring herself to refuse him. That's why she had no way to refute anything Sincere had just said. Why is it like this, she wondered. Sobbing, she tore the agreement in her hands to shreds, feeling as if something was slipping out of her control. No, I'll send Ethan away immediately. I can't betray my husband. She drove frantically to the hospital. At that moment, Ethan was being wheeled out of the emergency room by a nurse. Seeing him wrapped up head to toe like a mummy, the words she had prepared on the way died in her throat. Just then, Ethan saw her. His eyes instantly reddened, and tears began to flow. Ms. Ashworth, it still hurts so much. Your husband did this to me. You won't abandon me, will you? Ethan, don't worry. Victoria took the wheelchair from the nurse. I'll stay with you during this time. That stay turned into 5 weeks. Ethan had severe burns, but they didn't get infected, so he was discharged after 5 weeks. Although Victoria had the hospital use the best medicine available, the scars on his face and body were still shocking to behold. Even in the height of summer, he now wore long sleeves, gloves, a hat, glasses, and a mask. The moment he stepped out of the hospital, before he could even get in the car, a group of teenagers, mistaking him for a celebrity, crowded around asking for autographs. But when they got a closer look at his scarred face, they all ran away screaming. Ethan's face turned white as a sheet. He was sick of this inhuman, ghost-like appearance. He had wanted to make Sincere Prescott rot in jail, but that day, while he was in critical condition, Victoria had insisted he sign a letter dropping the charges. She promised she would do everything in her power to restore his original appearance and give him more money than he could ever spend in a lifetime. Seeing her unyielding determination, he had reluctantly agreed. Otherwise, given the power of their two families, it wouldn't have been impossible for her to hire a good lawyer and claim he was trespassing. The car drove directly to my house. When they walked in and saw me at home, both of them looked a little unnatural. "Honey, don't get the wrong idea. He was just discharged and isn't very mobile yet. I brought him back here to take care of him for a few days. We have plenty of staff, right?" Victoria said, walking towards me with an appeasing smile. She knew she'd been gone for nearly a month, and her tone was tinged with guilt. I sidestepped her attempt to take my arm, my gaze fixed malevolently on Ethan. "So you're planning on staying here, are you?" Hearing the hostility in my voice, he became nervous. I just got out of the hospital. It's still a little inconvenient for me." Hearing this, I didn't say another word and turned towards the kitchen. "Honey, where are you going?" "I'm just going to check if the water has boiled. You know what? I just remembered I left the tap on at my place. I should go." Before Ethan had even finished his sentence, he was already out the door. I emerged from the kitchen. Didn't someone just say he was having trouble getting around? He sure runs fast for someone who's inconvenient, doesn't he? Victoria started to chase after him, then looked back at me and stopped, a weary expression on her face. "Honey, how many times do I have to say it? There's nothing between us. Why can't you understand me?" But I felt not a shred of pity for her. My wife, neglecting her own home to take care of another man, was now asking me to understand her. "Sorry, not a chance." With that, I turned and went into the guest room. Victoria collapsed onto the sofa, her head in her hands. She truly couldn't understand. She hadn't done anything, so why had things turned out this way? Had Sincere changed? Although his personality had become more vibrant than before, he had also become more domineering. But she still preferred the current Sincere. It's true what they say, a simple always end up with nothing, and people will just call you boring and dull. From that day on, Victoria started coming home earlier. She even began learning to cook from Mrs. Davis, and would parade around in front of me at night in various sexy nightgowns. She was blatantly trying to seduce me, and I, regrettably, was weak. Of all the 36 stratagems, the honey trap was the one I was most susceptible to. On the third day, I finally surrendered. No wonder they say even heroes have a weakness for beautiful women, and I'm not even a damn hero. After making a few excuses for myself, I was conquered once again. For the next few days, it was like we were back to the old times. She came home early every day and cooked for me personally. Although her cooking wasn't quite up to Mrs. Davis's standard, it was still pretty good. After dinner, she would pull me into the shower, and then we would get down to the business of making a baby. She said she wanted to have a child with me. Life was good. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last. After about 2 weeks of this, she started working late frequently, eating out before coming home, always looking exhausted. Sometimes, even if she came home early, she would get a phone call, claim there was an issue at the office, and head out again. Knowing the plot as I did, I knew exactly what she was up to. I pulled out my phone and checked my social media feed. Sure enough, Ethan Miller had posted a set of photos. It was Victoria wearing an apron, cooking. The caption read, "I told her I hadn't eaten and was going to order takeout, but she wouldn't let me, and came back to cook for me personally. I'm so happy." Staring at my phone, I fell into thought. When did I add Ethan as a friend? I don't remember doing that. Was it a requirement of the plot? Seeing a post like this now, I felt nothing. There was no way they were going to make me die of anger this time. When Victoria got back, I asked casually, "Where were you just now? The office? You reek of sautéed shrimp." I cut her off before she could spin a lie. Hearing this, a flash of panic crossed her face. "Oh, a colleague at the office ordered sautéed shrimp and gave me a few." Honey, you have a sharp nose. I just smiled and told her to go take a shower. I no longer had an ounce of trust in her. The next few days were the same. Even when she was home, Victoria would be called away by a single phone call. From my omniscient perspective, I knew exactly what she was doing. Her little schemes were as transparent as glass to me. She behaved for a few days after that, coming home early and parading around in those sheer nightgowns, with a deliberately pleasing look in her eyes. Since the asset division wasn't finalized yet, I decided to play along. Her looks and body were top tier after all. It would be a waste not to enjoy them. She was willing to serve, and I was happy to indulge. We were each getting what we wanted, keeping up appearances flawlessly. One evening, the mood was just right. She had just stepped out of the shower, her hair damp, her cheeks flushed, wearing a silk slip that clung to her curves. I tossed my phone aside and pinned her beneath me. Foreplay was done. We were on the verge, just one final push away, when her damned phone started ringing. It vibrated furiously on the nightstand, the screen blindingly bright. I glanced over and saw that familiar name on the screen, Ethan Miller. Victoria clearly tensed up too, but a second later she instinctively reached for the phone. I watched as she, still breathless beneath me, averted her eyes to the caller ID. "Hello? Ethan? What's wrong?" Her voice was husky from our activities, but laced with tension. I don't know what was said on the other end, but Victoria's expression changed. "What? You sprained your ankle? Is it serious? Don't move, whatever you do, don't move. I'm on my way." I cursed under my breath. The fire that had just been ignited was doused with ice water, leaving nothing but smoke. Victoria had already pushed me off and scrambled out of bed. She grabbed her scattered clothes and started pulling them on, speaking rapidly. "Honey, I'm so sorry. Ethan sprained his ankle, really badly. He can't move. He's all alone. I have to go check on him. I'll be right back." The urgency in her voice made it sound not like a 25-year-old man with a sprained ankle, but like her 3-year-old son had fallen into a well. I sat up, breathing heavily, the last remnants of desire completely replaced by icy rage. I reached out and grabbed her slender wrist, my grip tight. "He sprained his ankle, and he can't call 911? He can't call an ambulance?" "He has to call you. What are you to him?" Victoria winced in pain, her brow furrowing. She twisted her wrist, breaking free from my grasp. Without even looking back at me, she rushed towards the door, tossing a sentence over her shoulder as if placating a naughty child. "Honey, be good. Ethan's still a kid. It's not easy for him out here on his own. He doesn't know how to take care of himself. I'll just go take a look, make sure he's okay, and come right back." Thump. The door was slammed shut. Her hurried footsteps faded down the hallway. The room was suddenly silent, save for my own heavy breathing and the lingering scent of intimacy in the air. I stared at the closed door, my gaze turning colder by the second, my chest still heaving with frustrated desire. A kid? A 25-year-old man-child. His parents were fine with leaving him in this city to fend for himself, but my dear wife was worried he couldn't handle a sprained ankle on his own. Fine. If that ankle is such a serious problem, I pulled my lips into a humorless smile. Then maybe he just shouldn't have it anymore. The next day, I drove directly to the city hospital. The Prescott family held a significant stake in this place. Our word carried weight. As expected, Victoria had arranged for Ethan to be in a top-floor, very important person room. For a simple sprain, he had an expert and several nurses fussing over him. Seeing this, I remained impassive and went straight to the director's office. The director's surname was Coleman. He was very polite upon seeing me, quickly standing up. "Mr. Prescott, what brings you here today?" I had no time for pleasantries. I sat down opposite his leather chair and tapped the desk. "Director Coleman, about the patient in the very important person room named Ethan Miller, with the sprained right ankle." Yes, Mr. Prescott, rest assured, Ms. Ashworth gave us instructions. We've assigned our best expert and are sparing no expense to use the best treatment plan." I raised a hand to cut him off. So that's what Victoria instructed. Anyone who didn't know better would think he had terminal cancer, not a sprained ankle. My voice was calm. "The medicine is good, but I find the treatment plan too conservative." Director Coleman froze. "Conservative? Mr. Prescott, you mean his injury?" I spoke slowly, my tone like that of an expert. "I've seen the scans. The situation is more complex than it appears. Severe soft tissue damage, vascular and nerve compression leading to peripheral nerve necrosis. Over time, it will only get worse. Best case, he walks with a limp. Worst case, femoral head necrosis. In the final stages, he'll end up in a vegetative state. Hearing my description, the director broke out in a sweat. Is it that serious? I nodded. The director asked, then, what should we do? Considering the long-term prognosis, I mused for a moment. Amputation is the best course of action. From the hip. Amputation? The director's face went pale, and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. Mr. Prescott, I've personally reviewed the report. It's a common sprain, not even a fracture. Amputation is completely unnecessary. The risks are far too great. Risks? I lifted my eyes and gave him a cool glance that choked off the rest of his words. Director Coleman, you're the professional. One misstep, the infection spreads, or he's left with a permanent functional disability. That's the real risk, isn't it? We invested in this hospital to save lives. Leaving a limb that poses a risk, that might get sprained again and again, is not worth it. The matter is settled. You'll write the report. He's here alone. His parents aren't around. Just get it done. With that, I stood up and walked out of his office. Director Coleman watched my back, his expression hardening with resolve. He understood. This wasn't a suggestion, it was an order. He knew all too well the power of the Prescott family, and he couldn't afford the consequences of refusal. A few hours later, in Ethan's luxurious hospital room, a group of doctors in white coats with solemn expressions filed in. The man leading them was the expert personally assigned by Director Coleman. Ethan was lying in bed playing on his phone and was startled by the procession. Mr. Miller, the expert began, his tone grave and professionally urgent. After our emergency consultation this morning and the latest high-precision imaging, we've discovered that the injury to your right ankle is far more complex and dangerous than it appears. Ethan was stunned. He knew exactly what was wrong with his ankle. He was faking it. It wasn't serious at all. He couldn't even feel any pain anymore. What do you mean? It was just a sprain. No, the expert said decisively. We've found signs of severe thrombosis in the local blood vessels and irreversible nerve compression. The blood supply to your foot is already compromised. More alarmingly, we have a high suspicion of early signs of hidden osteomyelitis. Once the infection spreads, the consequences would be catastrophic. At best, necrosis of the entire lower limb. At worst, it could be life-threatening. Ethan's face instantly turned ashen. No, that's impossible. It's fine. It's not even swollen. I can't even feel any pain now. You must have made a mistake. What did you say? You can't feel any pain? The expert's expression was one of shock. That means it's progressing rapidly. Someone, schedule the patient for surgery. Immediately, a nurse handed him a clipboard and a pen, her face equally serious. You need to sign this first. Terrified, Ethan unconsciously signed his name and was promptly wheeled into the operating room. When Ethan regained consciousness, it was to a heart-rending, bone-deep agony that jolted him awake. He forced his eyes open, his mind hazy for a few seconds. He instinctively reached down to touch his right leg, but his fingers met only empty air. A terrible premonition washed over him. Trembling, he used all his strength to fling back the thin blanket covering him. The sight that greeted him was the complete absence of his right leg from the hip down. Ah, my leg, where's my leg? My leg, give me back! My leg! Squeals like a slaughtered pig echoed through the hospital room. He screamed and cried in despair for the entire afternoon until he lost his strength and fainted again. That evening, Victoria dragged her exhausted body home. She had spent the previous night at the hospital and the entire day at her company. When she came home and saw me acting normally, having already finished dinner, she breathed a sigh of relief. Then she took out her phone to call Ethan and check on his recovery. She'd tried calling several times that afternoon, but he hadn't answered. This time he picked up, but after only a few words, Victoria's face grew increasingly pale. After hanging up, she looked at me, sitting leisurely on the living room sofa sipping tea, and she finally exploded. Sincere Prescott, was it you? She stormed over to me, her eyes bloodshot, her voice cracking with shrillness. Ethan's leg. Why is his leg gone? The doctors said it was a sudden, severe infection that required an emergency amputation, but yesterday, it was just a sprain. It was nothing. It was you. It must have been you, you devil. I put down my teacup and looked up calmly at her hysterical form, my face devoid of expression. So you also knew it was just a sprain, that it was nothing. I methodically took out my phone, unlocked it, and opened that familiar green social media app. I scrolled a few times, then turned the screen towards her. holding it right in front of her face. Displayed prominently on the screen was a post Ethan had made the night before. Accidentally sprained my ankle, it hurts so much TRTT. Luckily, President Ashworth came to take care of me right away. With my sister here, I'm not afraid of anything. 3 below the text was a picture. It showed Victoria, in profile, sitting by his bed, her head bowed in concentration as she applied ointment to his ankle. The lighting was intimate, the angle cleverly chosen. Victoria's gaze was glued to the screen. Seeing the suggestive text and picture, all her righteous anger instantly crumbled into dust. Her face went deathly pale, her lips trembled, and her body swayed so violently she nearly collapsed, only staying upright by clutching the back of the sofa. "Honey, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I was just being foolish last night." He was crying so pitifully, saying he couldn't move on his own. I was afraid something would happen. I don't know what's wrong with me. I know I love you, but when he asks for things, I just can't bring myself to refuse him. She sobbed heartbrokenly, and her words seemed genuine. I understood her. Her mindset was likely just as she described it. She loved me now. But because of the book's predetermined plot, even with Ethan being the inhuman, ghost-like thing he was now, she was incapable of refusing him. I looked down at the face I was once infatuated with, now streaked with tears and mucus. I slowly bent down, and one by one pried her fingers, which were desperately clutching my pant leg, away. My movements were cold, decisive, without a trace of lingering affection. Then I straightened up, walked to the coffee table, opened the drawer, and took out the divorce agreement that had been lying in wait, along with a pen. "Sign it." I tossed the agreement and pen onto the carpet in front of her, my voice flat. "Victoria, this is the last chance I'm giving you. Sign it. It won't take effect just yet. We'll still be husband and wife in name." I paused, looking down at her frozen face. "But remember, this is your last get-out-of-jail-free card. If you ever lie to me for his sake again, or see him behind my back even once—" I leaned down, my face close to hers, which was soaked with tears and etched with terror, and lowered my voice to a whisper. "Then this agreement will take effect immediately, and you will leave with nothing. Everything belonging to the Prescott family, including our shared assets, every single thing, will have nothing to do with you ever again." I wasn't being greedy, I was just protecting what was mine and our shared assets from the past few years. While she managed the Ashworth family company, she didn't actually hold the shares. My cold gaze terrified Victoria. She'd never seen me like this. An immense fear washed over her, making her forget her grief and her pleading. She knew I wasn't bluffing. The sincere Prescott who was once so obedient and gentle with her had changed completely. The man before her now would do exactly as he said. His eyes were filled with ruthless cruelty. She had no doubt that if she dared to cross the line again, he would truly make her pay the price. Frantically she picked up the pen, and on the signature line of the agreement signed her name with such force it nearly tore through the paper. I signed it. Honey, I promise, I'll never do it again. Never again. She truly meant it in that moment. She was determined to cut off all contact with Ethan, but she had made that resolution many times before. I knew that, unlike me, she was incapable of escaping this fate, not unless Ethan was dead. I bent down and impassively took the signed agreement from her. I checked it carefully to confirm it was correct, then turned and walked straight upstairs. After signing the suspended sentence agreement, Victoria behaved herself for a few days, just as I expected. Every time I disciplined her, she would be good for a while. She went back to cooking soups and meals, wearing sexy nightgowns and trying to rekindle something with her body and her submissiveness. Unfortunately, I had little interest in this distracted shell of a person. As I predicted, this state of affairs couldn't last. A leopard can't change its spots, and Victoria couldn't change her bleeding heart for Ethan Miller. Tonight, she came home with red-rimmed eyes, clutching a piece of paper, looking as though the sky had fallen. "Honey," she leaned into my arms, her voice thick with emotion. "What's wrong?" She handed me the paper. "Ethan, he has bone cancer. The doctor says he only has a few days left." I took the so-called diagnostic report. It looked quite convincing. He was smart this time, getting a certificate from a different hospital. I raised an eyebrow, my tone neutral. "So what are you trying to say?" Seeing my cold reaction, Victoria became anxious. "But honey, the doctor said it's already spread. It's incurable. His final wish is to see the northern lights abroad. He said it's his lifelong dream." As she spoke, tears welled up again, mixed with a sort of self-congratulatory pity. He's so pitiful. All alone without any family, first disfigured, and now he's lost a leg. So, I interrupted her continued guilt-tripping. You want to go with him? I stared at her, my expression dark. My gaze made her flinch. Her eyes darted away and her voice dropped. I just want to help him fulfill this last wish, as a way of seeing him off. Is that okay? I promise, just this once. After I see the northern lights with him and see him off on his final journey, I will cut off all contact with him completely, I swear. From now on, my heart will only have you and our family in it. She raised her hand as if taking a sacred oath. I watched her performance, feeling nothing but a slight urge to laugh. See him off on his final journey? Sure, I'll help you make it very final. Oh, really? I twisted my lips into a cold smile. How long will you need? Seeing that I seemed to be relenting, she quickly said, About 2 weeks, 20 days at most. I promise I'll be back soon. I nodded. Fine, you can go. Victoria, feeling as if she'd received a pardon, didn't even notice the expression on my face. The next day, she left with her suitcase, taking Ethan with her to a foreign country. The moment she was gone, I called my lawyer. You can begin the proceedings. I need it done as quickly as possible. All I had to do now was wait. When the divorce was finalized, I took a few of my most trusted men and quietly traveled to the country where they were staying. This country was not only famous for its beautiful aurora borealis, but also for having one of the most mature, legalized euthanasia systems in the world. I was fully aware of Victoria and Ethan's every move. I had my people temporarily divert Victoria's attention, and at the same time they appeared before Ethan. They were impeccably dressed, their demeanor professional yet distant, carrying an air of compassionate authority. Mr. Miller, the middle-aged man leading the group, said, handing him a business card, We are specialists from the International Dignity in Dying Organization. We received your euthanasia application, submitted through a special channel, along with your detailed medical reports of terminal, metastatic bone cancer. After a rigorous evaluation by our independent medical team, and your signed consent forms and cooling-off period confirmations, your application has been given final approval. Ethan was dumbfounded. Of course he was. He didn't have terminal bone cancer. He had never submitted a euthanasia application. He instinctively tried to deny it. No, I didn't. You're Mr. Miller, the man interrupted him, calmly holding up a tablet. On the screen was Ethan's own forged, yet incredibly realistic, medical file, along with several consent forms and confirmations with signatures that were nearly identical to his. Given your current physical condition, irreversible and severe pain, complete lack of mobility, and the immense mental and physical suffering caused by your diagnosed terminal illness, we completely understand and respect your choice to end your life with dignity. This is in accordance with the law here. His words carried a powerful psychological suggestion and an irrefutable professional authority. Ethan stared at the documents on the tablet and suddenly understood. This was all Sincere Prescott. Sincere had used his own forged medical records to dig his grave. He wanted to scream, to run, but his amputated body made it impossible for him to even stand. No, I don't need this. I'm not sick. That's fake. Let me go, Victoria. Save me. He panicked, trying to escape, but it was all in vain. Mr. Miller, we understand your emotional volatility at this moment. It's perfectly normal. Another man, dressed like a doctor, spoke in a tone that was soothing yet permitted no argument. We see your suffering. Please trust us. This is the most dignified and painless way to find relief. After you sign the documents, we will administer a gentle sedative. You will pass away peacefully in your sleep, without any pain. He gestured, and a woman dressed as a nurse approached with a tray. Get away, I'm not signing. Ethan thrashed his arms wildly, trying to knock over the tray. The patient is overly agitated and may harm himself, which would compromise the dignity of the procedure, the middle-aged man instructed calmly. Please help Mr. Miller calm down and complete the final signature confirmation process. 2 tall, well-trained orderlies immediately stepped forward, pinning Ethan's struggling body and arms. His screams and shouts were muffled, leaving only desperate whimpers. The doctor skillfully drew medicine into a syringe. Watching the cold needle approach his arm, Ethan's pupils dilated in absolute terror. He finally understood the depths of Sincere Prescott's cruelty. He didn't just want him disgraced and crippled. He wanted him to voluntarily walk to his own death, robbing him of even the chance to struggle or protest. When Victoria finished dealing with the matters that had called her away and returned, Ethan was no longer in the room. In his place were an urn, the signed euthanasia agreement, a tablet playing a video compilation of all the evidence of Ethan's deceptions, and a brand new divorce certificate. Back home, my world was quiet. The Prescott Group was firmly under my control, and everything was running smoothly. The house that was once filled with Victoria's presence had been completely cleared out, sanitized, and redecorated, leaving not a single trace that she had ever existed. Victoria returned with Ethan's urn and the divorce certificate. Penniless, she was cast out by the Ashworth family as a disgrace, her reputation in tatters, becoming the laughingstock of our social circle. She went mad, trying to contact me in every possible way, calling me from different numbers, her calls filled with heart-wrenching sobs and confessions. Having lost everything, she couldn't even catch a glimpse of my shadow, and my future would only get brighter and brighter.